FC Barcelona finished the 23-24 season without a single piece of silverware, and shortly after, sacked club legend and manager Xavi Hernandez. So today, they're looking to rebuild their squad, with several high-profile and therefore costly signings looking to be made. And if you were to ask me 6 months ago where I thought that money should come from, well, I probably would have said from the sale of Frenkie De Jong. With an estimated value of around 80 million euros, the Dutchman could easily cover the cost of some very impressive signings, but when you look deeper into the financials, the story gets a little bit more interesting. Next season, Frenkie is set to earn 37 million euros from Barcelona, the third most in world football behind Kylian Mbappe and Erling Haaland. Considering his form and his injuries, that is just way too much money to be paying Frenkie De Jong. Last season, he played in the least amount of league games for Barcelona in his entire career due to injuries and just wasn't fantastic under Xavi. This team struggled to find form early on in the season as the Spaniard tried to find a system that could balance out that midfield before losing both Frenkie and Gavi due to injury, leading to them falling several points behind Real Madrid in the league, a gap they would never be able to overcome. And that has pretty much been his story at Barcelona, rarely finding his very best form, and then when he does, well, for one reason or another, it ends. And this season, just when we were seeing him get some consistency, play well, and be prominent, well, he goes out again from an injury that happened in El Clasico, which saw him miss out on the Euros and Barcelona's summer tour. So that's it, right? Frenkie should go. He doesn't fit in the squad perfectly, and he's getting paid a ton of money. Well, yeah, that's what I would have said if you were to ask me 6 months ago. However, now, I think the story has changed a little bit, one of those reasons being Hansi Flick. The German is known for managing an insanely good Bayern Munich and also a very poor German team. However, a common trend in both of those sides was an elite ball progressor and fantastic player in the buildup of the game, something that Frenkie De Jong is incredibly well suited for. Barca haters, and honestly a lot of Barca fans, love to criticize Frenkie De Jong for the way he plays on the ball, his slow play, his methodical play, his running with the ball instead of passing it quickly and moving the ball around. However, the role he plays doesn't necessarily reward players playing differently than Frenkie. That position doesn't require that a player has to pass super rapidly or score lots of goals, but to find the right passes, or in Frankie's case, the right space to exploit and drive into, which has always been Frankie's best ability, and would be something invaluable under Hansi Flick, and will be absolutely a role the German drives to fill in this Barcelona side. But Rob, you're probably all saying right now, he's still getting paid way too much money, and so why don't we sell him, bring in a bunch of money, and get rid of a huge salary on our books? Well, it's not that simple. Let me explain. Let's assume that Barcelona, considering their position and the fact that they're going to likely require all the payment up front, sell Frenkie today for 75 million euros. Because Barcelona amortized Frankie's transfer fee from Ajax, so spread it out like they're spending 10 to 15 million per year for 6 years instead of 86 million all at once, there is still 30 million euros left to be accounted for, effectively to be paid to Ajax. If they transfer him out this summer, that 30 million will have to be taken away from the incoming funds, which brings us down to 45 million. Now we have to look at Frankie's salary, which is somewhere between 25 million and 37 million, depending on where you look. And it's realistically only that high because Bartomeu and the boys decided to defer or push off his salary to be paid a few years down the line during the COVID pandemic. Basically, that means that Frenkie is being paid today for the football he played years ago, which means if we sell him, well, according to Frankie's agent, Barcelona is still going to have to pay all of that money to Frenkie De Jong. And so if we sell him, the thing that makes the most sense would to be paying him out all of that money immediately. And that's going to be somewhere in the range of 25 to 40 million euros. I know it's a big range, but I literally could not find it anywhere online. But if we take the 25 to just make this easier and be generous, and we subtract that from our 45 that we have left over from his transfer out fee, well, that leaves us with an earning of 20 million euros to be completely done with Frenkie De Jong. That doesn't feel terrible considering the position that Barcelona is in. However, we did just speak about how Hansi Flick is going to want a player to occupy that position, and honestly, I don't think any player in this squad perfectly can replace Frenkie De Jong if we do sell him. Gavi may be able to cover some of his responsibilities, and the same goes for Pedri, but the quality drops significantly after those two, and both of them are incredibly injury prone. Gundogan has proven time and time again that he will get too exploited defensively, especially without a strong defender next to him, and then what are your options from there? A 17-year-old from La Masia in Marc Bernal and Oriol Romeu? And so if Barcelona sells Frenkie De Jong, they're going to have to replace that profile. And who's the name that we've heard really the most about, or there's been the most excitement about? Joshua Kimmich. Now, he may have already played for Hansi Flick and understand his system, but he's also older and might be just as expensive as Frenkie would be. Right now at Bayern, the German is earning 20 million euros per year and will probably request the same at Barca and has a 60 million euro release clause. So if you amortize that fee over a 5-year contract, which would already be too generous considering that he's turning 30 next year, well, that would be a total cost of 35 million euros, 20 of it being for the salary and 15 for being that amortized fee for an older player than Frenkie, and would cost about the same per year over the next 2 years. Now, okay, if we take the 20 million from the Frenkie De Jong sale, that turns it into about 28 million euros per year for Kimmich, but then you're paying for a 30-year-old Kimmich for the next 5 years. That much money, that's ridiculous, and I don't know if that's a better option than just dealing with Frenkie De Jong. For the next 2 years, it is scary. That's a lot of money, and he's not going to just take a pay cut out of the well-being of his heart. He just had a child, and that doesn't make sense, and I would never ask a player to do that. However, the team can try to extend his contract, spread out all of those deferred payments and his transfer fee even further, and make him a little bit less costly, at least right now, for this side. Probably ending after an extended contract in the neighborhood of 25 million euros per year, everything included. If Barcelona signed Kimmich at the expense of Frenkie to save a couple million euros per year, well, I don't think it's worth it. I understand he has chemistry with Hansi Flick and he can play the right back position, but he is also older, and honestly, I don't think he's much better than Frenkie either. The only way a sale of Frenkie De Jong could make sense is if they go after a significantly cheaper asset, and maybe in a younger player or just one with less interest in him. And that is where basically the only other midfield name that seems realistic right now lands. Mikel Merino. I really like Merino, and I think he's a very good option and rumored to be valued somewhere between 20 and 30 million, but I don't think he's as good at ball progression as Frenkie is, and so the team will have to find a way to compensate for that, especially considering that this side probably is not going to sign a pivot at all this summer. That's right, I think the position that we've been looking to fill since Busquets left, and honestly, probably before that as well, will again just be left empty, and they're going to try to figure it out with the players they already have. Now, Merino would be able to occupy that space, sort of, and so can Romeu, who is apparently staying, and so can Christensen, who's been performing pretty well, but more importantly, I don't think those guys are great at moving the ball around, and so won't be able to perfectly compensate for the lack of Frenkie or Kimmich's responsibilities under Hansi Flick. Now, it's looking entirely possible that Barcelona are signing a very special winger that I don't want to name, but I'm very excited about, as well as being rumored to be in talks with Dani Olmo right now. Both of those guys, as well as a healthy Alejandro Balde, can be very good at helping to move the ball up the pitch. So this team can operate, and probably operate very well, just a little bit differently without Frenkie De Jong in the lineup. But I think they would be better with him. Because of all the add-ons, all the amortizations, and the deferred wages, the selling of Frenkie De Jong isn't as profitable as it seems, and finding a replacement isn't as easy either, with Mikel Merino apparently in talks with Atletico Madrid among multiple other clubs in the Premier League as well. And to shell out a ton of money for a guy like Joshua Kimmich, who has some problems in and of itself, it doesn't make sense to me. And so there's really no clear-cut plan for this team or for Frenkie, and it's a mess right now. However, I've failed to mention the most important part, and that's that Frenkie has all of the power. He already rejected a move away after Barcelona agreed terms on an 85 million euro or so move for him to play for Erik ten Hag at Man United a few years ago, and I could see him doing the same again this year. Why would he want to go? I think he's happy in Barcelona, and with Hansi Flick there, might be excited about a new project. However, that doesn't mean Barcelona isn't going to try to find a suitor for him. I think they're going to shop him around, see if they can get good offers, but I think there is one interesting point here that I've mentioned earlier that might be good for Frenkie De Jong if you want him and he wants to stay at Barcelona. And that's the signing, apparently, of Dani Olmo. For Barcelona to go after Dani Olmo would mean that one of their attacking midfielders, or guys that have been playing pretty far forward, well, they're not going to be able to play there because now we would have Dani Olmo, Fermin Lopez, probably Gundogan, Pedri, Rafinha even, to occupy that same position. That's too many guys. So either I can imagine Hansi Flick wanting to drop back Pedri or Gundogan, hopefully just Pedri, to play in that deeper lying midfielder role, which potentially puts Frenkie De Jong on the chopping block. However, I think it makes more sense since you're bringing in two attackers and that special winger I don't want to jinx, and maybe Dani Olmo, well, to get rid of an attacker as well, which I think means danger for Rafinha. So I'm sure that would be very surprising for a lot of people because of how good Rafinha is and then the lack of talk we've heard about him. But I think it also makes more sense to get rid of a forward instead of a midfielder if you're bringing in two more forwards. Now, what do we know about Barcelona? They don't make rational decisions, and so it's hard to predict what is actually going to go happen, but I hope I laid out to you the exact financial situation with Frenkie so you can see that getting rid of him, selling him, isn't as beneficial as I think a lot of people feel it is. And also, I don't think he's a bad guy for getting paid all of this money. He's getting paid the money he was owed a while ago, so he's not just earning a normal 37 million euro salary. He's earning about half of that. The other half is leftover money that we didn't give him before. So let me know what you think. Who should go? Who should stay? What's actually going to happen? And thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hop on over to this one to learn about the Ansu Fati situation, or this one to learn about whatever YouTube thinks you'll be interested in. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.